Welcome to The Blue Dot, Northern Kentucky's premier political podcast, brought to you by the Kenton County Democratic Executive Committee. Welcome back to The Blue Dot podcast for our weekly roundup, where we deliver you all the news you need to know in 10 minutes or less. From Medicaid cuts to Mitch's absence, we have it all. Thanks for joining. I'm Natalie MacDonald.
And I'm Brian Koehl. Well, Mitch McConnell may be MIA, Natalie, but Democrats at Northern Kentucky July 4th parades and picnics sure weren't. At the Fort Thomas 4th of July parade in Campbell County, which I attended, we had 5 candidates walking in the parade, supported by nearly 100 loud and enthusiastic Democrats. Our team, while walking the parade, was over a block long, and we were loud and proud. I think the spectators got the message loud and clear. The Democrats are here. We are sick and tired of the status quo, and we are determined to drive change. I saw the social posts on Kenton County turnout, Natalie. What was that like over there across the old Licking Ocean?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. We had our largest parade turnout to date with local candidates, their families, their supporters. Awesome. It was great, Brian, and the amount of support and people running up to us saying, thanks for being here. It was all inspiring. And we actually had 2 shout outs for the Blue Dot podcast. So that was
right.
fun.
Yeah.
I know, right? That being said, we are about 116 days away from taking back power. November 3rd could not get here soon enough. And people are starting to see how devastating Republican policies have been. If you turn on the local or national news, the big betrayal bill's true colors are starting to take effect in Kentucky. House Bill 2, a measure that puts part of the new federal Medicaid law into Kentucky statute, will go into effect July 15th. And as a reminder, the Republican supermajority in Kentucky passed a 2-year state budget that falls $691 million short of fully funding Medicaid. The 4% Medicaid reimbursement cuts are set to take effect August 1st.
Yeah, I mean, these cuts affect hospitals, home health agencies, behavioral health providers, foster care, and most devastatingly, the waiver programs on which individuals and families caring for those with disabilities are going to get hit the hardest. I have been seeing on a daily basis example after example of our elderly and disabled neighbors at risk of losing access to their in-home care aides, who are really some of the true heroes of healthcare. This threatens the ability of our elderly and disabled neighbors to remain in their homes and the independence that affords them. The very livelihoods of these in-home healthcare workers are also at risk. These are devastating consequences, not only in terms of the health and the patients and the economic well-being of the workers, but also the damage that results to the social fabric that is woven together through these caring relationships. The negative effects of poor government policy are rarely just financial.
Yeah, not only that, but since the big ugly, nearly 100,000 Kentuckians have lost their health insurance. And these Medicaid cuts are only going to hurt more. So Northern Kentucky families, I don't know if you saw, were featured on local news this week, taking their concerns to Frankfort. But unfortunately, It's just a little too late. Governor Beshear stated that he begged the General Assembly to not do this, but they literally said, too bad, Andy, you should have made cuts elsewhere. So instead of addressing Trump's $1 trillion Medicaid cuts, Republicans in Frankfort pushed health care further out of reach.
Yeah, the gaslighting from House Speaker David Osborne on the issue of the funding for the Lee Clinic in Louisville was disgusting. In his official statement, which I invite everybody to go find and read, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, "Hey, we gave the governor funding for the clinic. It's not our problem if his priorities are screwed up." Yeah, right, Dave. The Kentucky Republican supermajority underfunded the Medicaid budget overall by $691 million. And as Governor Beshear replied, quote, "If you starve everything, you're just moving money from one starved program that's already hurting to another." In other words, Lee Clinic was temporarily saved, but only by jeopardizing some other deserving service or program. And the governor continues to shuffle the limited funds around, moving $30 million from projects that are outdated or ineffective to support programs that are being cut. By doing this, he is trying to offset funding cuts to foster care programs, restore access to TANF, or temporary assistance for needy families, for 1,500 Kentuckians, and just attempt to blunt roughly half of the state cuts to Medicaid.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what the Democrats and Governor Beshear are doing to try to help bridge this divide here. But it isn't just Kentucky. It's hurting people nationwide, and Dems are fighting back on a federal level as well. Democrats in 25 states and the District of Columbia have sued the Trump administration over these Medicaid cuts and restrictions, and Kentucky is joining that fight. So, bottom line is, Brian, it's just unbelievable that Trump is out there bragging about profiting billions and billions off the backs of the American people, all while the most vulnerable of our country are literally facing death due to lack of health care because of his signature legislation.
As one person said that I saw yesterday, he is a horrible human being.
Yes.
And there's just no doubt about that. I'm sorry. But,
Yeah.
it isn't just the loss of health care making headlines this week. Northern Kentucky farmers were also featured in local news talking about how they are struggling. They've seen a rise in packaging materials, tools, and the most essential product, soil. They also cited that transportation costs are huge, which, affects everything.
And while the Democrats are out there proposing solutions, what's the Republican solution? Their answer is to distract by claiming Democrats are communists. Yeah, the Red Scare.
Bringing back the old, bringing back the greatest hits. Here we go.
The greatest hits, yes. And their newest claim is that the communist Democrats are going to take away your air conditioning. The Department of Energy has been posting about this conspiracy theory, as well as talking points that drawing your blinds and changing your thermostat is woke. Because nothing says woke like, I do not want to have a $700 energy bill. But here's where it gets ironic, Brian.
That wasn't the irony? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's not even the beginning. You ready for this? The most ironic part is that Trump is actually the one taking away people's air conditioning. His proposed budget would cut the low-income House Energy Assistance Program, also known as LIHEAP, which would shut off the life-saving utility of cold air to so many.
Yeah. LIHEAP funds are appropriated by Congress every October, and for those not familiar, LIHEAP provides short-term relief during extreme conditions. It is a federally funded government program that issues grants to help eligible low-income households pay their heating and cooling bills, avoid utility shutoffs, and manage energy-related emergencies or weatherization needs. This would affect 150,000 Kentuckians.
Yeah, you know who it won't affect is the Epstein class. They're doing just fine. Again.
Yeah, yeah. It's great.
So, I don't know. I wonder what Kentucky's Senator Mitch McConnell would say about all of this. We just don't know.
No word from Mitch, nor his staff.
Nope.
Where is he? Now, we don't know because we don't know where Mitch is, But I've received so many questions about what would happen should Senator McConnell not be able to continue serving his term. And first off, honestly, we do hope Senator McConnell is well, and we want the best for him and his family. However, it's the lack of transparency that's killing us, but it's not surprising. Much like everything the Republican Party does, we, the people, are kept in the dark.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people are asking what would happen if he vacates his seat prior to the November election. So what could happen is Kentucky could hold a special election to temporarily fill the role as required by a 2024 state law. And that special election must be called for by the governor. There are several time requirements to give voters, candidates, and political parties a chance to organize prior to this election.
Yeah, the timing is key here, and, we are running out of it. Once the governor issues a proclamation for the special election, a copy must be sent to the sheriffs of each county at least 63 days before the election. Then political parties or organizations can file petitions and certificates of nomination with a deadline of 56 days before the election.
Yeah, and if all that sounds a little bit confusing, it is. And that's because the Republican supermajority has changed the rules over the years depending on what would serve them best, not what would serve their constituents. Kind of par for the course. In fact, the supermajority changed its mind for the second time in 3 years on how vacancies in the United States Senate are to be filled. Prior to these maneuvers, the same system had been in place since 1942, whereby the governor would appoint a replacement to fill this vacancy. But most recently in 2024, they stripped power from the governor, thus leading to the situation we are in now that would require a special election. However, Brian, given the timing on this, I think this seat will probably just be vacant until November, depending on what happens.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I just don't think they're ever going to put it together quick enough, and they're not really motivated to do that, right? And again, here we go. November just can't get here soon enough. All of the local candidates right here in Kentucky are already making a lot of noise on the campaign trail.
Yeah, and one of those candidates is Melissa Strange. I don't know if you saw her most recent op-ed, but she
I
addressed
did.
all of these affordability issues and how she would stand up for what's right for her constituents. And she pointed out that Mr. No Massey is out, and now we have the option of a yes man who's
Oh
trying to
boy.
take his place. I know, right? You know, so with the Republicans, your choice is a guy who did nothing and a guy who will be nothing more than a puppet for Trump's Epstein class agenda. And I mean, I think that's not just here in Kentucky, that's across the board in November. It's the working class versus the Epstein class.
Right. I mean, look, as long as Kentuckians and Americans keep electing Trump enablers, all classes other than the ultra wealthy are going to be ignored and suffer. The frustrating thing about all the cuts to the programs and services that average Americans rely on is that the money to fund these things is there. It exists. It's just either being funneled to the top 0.5% of the income bracket, or it's being wasted by the corruption and incompetence of the Trump administration. Friends, we are being fleeced by Trump and his Republican cult. The first step in fighting back is voting them out of office. November 3rd, 2026 is the day we begin our Make America Make Sense Again project.
Absolutely, Brian. And until then, we will keep fighting for the people, and we will be back to talk about all of it again next week because our 10 minutes are up. Until next time, stay curious, keep the facts in focus, and never, ever stop fighting for what matters. Peace out, everybody.